that's it for now.
Okay. Actually, this is a nice link to the next part, where we will talk about how do we actually work for the liberation of all life. What does that mean? We have already concluded from a theosophical point of view that liberation should be seen primarily as something that takes place on an inner level, where consciousness is no longer limited by outer circumstances. And in addition, we have seen that the current conception of what work is or should be is problematic for many reasons. It leads to inequality, to exhaustion, and sometimes even to exploitation. Whereas if you look at work theosophically, it is actually very simple. We can all contribute something to the whole we are part of. And when all people share this perspective of contributing to the whole, there will always appear to be enough to provide for everyone's livelihood and leaving us all the time to further develop ourselves also on an inner level and do the inner work to acquire a state of liberation. Of course, in cooperation with each other. Now we can wait until conditions are right, but we can also choose to contribute now. And in this last section we will elaborate what it means if we make such a choice. Now the Theosophical teachings invariably point to the unity of all life, the essential unity of all that exists, a unity that underlies all of nature. And that includes assuming one humanity as a living organ of this living planet. We also discussed this cycle in the previous section until we reach the point where we can actually and consciously choose definitely to work for the liberation of all life. If we continue along the path inward through our conscience to higher states of consciousness, then at some point we will be able to reach a stage of true liberation. A state of consciousness brighter than anything we can imagine. A state of eternal peace and bliss, as some describe. But as stated in Blavatsky's booklet, The Voice of Silence, will we then achieve enlightenment and hear the whole world cry? From the unity of all life, is it not selfishness to then withdraw, enter nirvana, and never be seen again by your fellow men? It is the mystery of the two paths, that of the Pratyeka Buddhas, or Buddhas for self, and the Amrita Buddhas, or Buddhas of compassion. Two paths to choose from. A choice we can then be stuck for aeons to come. And we are already preparing that choice now, with the direction of our thinking, with our thoughts and actions in everyday life. So the true liberator actually chooses not liberation, but renunciation. He renounces nirvana for himself, in order to continue working as liberator for all life. As expressed in the Voice of the Silence, thus the first path is liberation, but path the second is renunciation. Sweet are the fruits of rest and liberation for the sake of self, but sweeter still the fruits of long and bitter duty. Renunciation for the sake of others, of suffering fellow men. He who becomes Pratyeka Buddha makes his obeisance but to himself. The Bodhisattva, who has won the battle, who holds the prize within his palm, yet says, in his divine compassion, for others' sake this great reward I yield, accomplishes the greater renunciation. A saviour of the world is he. End quote. So ultimately we all face a choice. Do we choose for liberation of ourselves alone, or to renounce and to keep working for the liberation of all life? And in fact this choice is always there and at every level, including all our work. This starts with the work for livelihood, to live and care. do we do that only for ourselves or for our own family or relatives? Or do we look more broadly at caring for our environment, for the sake of the whole community, for nature and all that is part of it? And if we do so, we are already making different choices. Whether we want to buy new stuff at all. And if we do, what products do we buy? Are we willing to pay a bit more for products that provide fair living conditions elsewhere, that are sustainable and do not deplete the earth? And also, when we work to learn, do we do so only for ourselves? Do we get absorbed in the experience economy and travel the world to learn about ourselves? Or do we work to learn for others, to see how we can help others better? And finally, this also applies to the inner work that leads to liberation. Is it to find peace for ourselves? To be enlightened from all worldly misery for ourselves? Or do we really pierce through the illusion of separateness and forget ourselves in the work we are doing to help the totality move forward? And this is a choice that we are thus already making, which is natural if you start from the perspective of the oneness of all life. It is this work to which the teachers of humanity, Krishna, Buddha, Plato, etc., have pointed us. And these were nothing other than the cyclic impulses continuously sent out from the Lodge of Wisdom and Compassion in their work for the liberation of all life. And this work is also the reason why the Theosophical movement was started, and which each of us can join to participate in it. So what does that work look like? We let a number of Theosophical teachers speak about this, starting with H.P. Blavatsky, who started the modern Theosophical movement following the orders of her teachers, two masters of the Lodge of Wisdom and Compassion. She wrote, "Theosophy is the quintessence of duty. You could call it the highest dharma." And she describes it as a reward past all telling, the power to bless and save humanity. In short, it all begins with Theosophy's vision and motive to serve humanity. And it also shows that Theosophy is not a study in itself, not something merely theoretical, because as her own definition of a Theosophist reads, she says, "Theosophist is who Theosophy does." You are not a true Theosophist if you do not also express the Theosophical teachings in your own life, live by them, and be an example of them. At the same time, the work of the TS is aimed at making people think independently, showing the idea of the unity of all life, and providing knowledge about the laws of nature. So each one can thereby form his or her own vision of life and answer life's questions. So in short, there's actually nothing more practical than an idea, as Gottfried de Brugger, the fourth leader of the Theosophical Society, said. We also showed the cycle, thought, action, habit, character, reincarnation and karma, plus our conscience, leading to eventual liberation and the final choice to work for the liberation of all life. This all begins with a thought. And anyone involved in Theosophy can help in that work to spread ideas, to spread ideals. As one of the masters says in a letter to AP Synod, and I quote, "He who does not feel competent enough to grasp the noble idea," and he referred to before the idea of brotherhood of humanity, "he who does not feel competent enough to grasp the noble idea sufficiently to work for it, need not undertake a task too heavy for him. But there is hardly a Theosophist in the whole society unable to factually help it by correcting the erroneous impressions of the outsiders, if not by actually propagating himself the idea." End of quote. Now we all have people around us, not without reason, because it is karmically exactly the reflection of our own thoughts and actions. And so we all also have our duties to our environment, to our family, to the community, to humanity as a whole, yes, to all life. And with the understanding of the unity of all life and the will to work for it, also comes the understanding about what our real work, our dharma or duty is. And to be able to fulfill that for the benefit of the whole is truly the reward past all telling. Okay, we now again have 3 minutes of a break and then some time again for questions. Okay, welcome back. I understood there are no questions for this round. Okay, then we will end this lecture as we always do by the Gayatri of the Rig Veda about the golden sun, the Atmic part in ourself. O thou golden sun of most excellent splendor, illumine our hearts and fill our minds, so that we, recognizing our oneness with the divinity which is the heart of the universe, may see the pathway before our feet and tread it to those distant goals of perfection, stimulated by thine own radiant light.